Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome everyone. Today is our day two session for our PharmaNext sessions for April. And we are so fortunate because we got one of the best, our Dennis Ong from Philippines, to come and share with us about ageLOC youth, or they call it YouthSpan in Southeast Asia, and also R Square. And Dennis is Blue Diamond. Timmy, ready? Let's go. Okay, there you are. You're on.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is joining in this call. I would like to take the time to thank Margaret and Pat for visiting the Philippines a couple of weeks ago. And we do appreciate all the hard work and effort that everyone is doing, right? So today, my topic will be more on R2 and Y-span. And I think this is also very timely simply because if you look at the craze right now that a lot of people check online. Um, the main topic right now is all about biohacking, right? So if you're familiar with biohacking, it's simply finding ways how your body could get ahead of aging, or what we say, we control the aging process, right? So definitely this industry has so much room to grow. And we are basically at the beginning. People are very interested in ways, not just to slow down aging, but also to find ways how to win over a lot of the diseases we find in the market, right? So because of the internet, there's education, people are learning more about these things. But at the same time, the internet also cannot filter fake information. So we have to also be very, very careful and be able to decipher between real information and fake information, right? So let me just show everyone the first picture that I always show everyone. Okay, this is, we all know Dr. Joe Chang. And I don't know if you've seen Joe Chang in the early 2005. This is pre-ageLOC. This is during the time that Pharmanex was absorbed by New Skin. And obviously, he looked like an uncle, right? We always say it's like my eldest uncle, right? And if you look at his picture on the right side with after R2, right, in 2010, he looks a lot younger. And I always tell my friend that this is pre-AI period, which means that this thing cannot be just easily edited through AI. And if you have to have somebody do a Photoshop, it's basically a very good Photoshop work, right? It's not easy to do something like this, right? So um, when I actually show this picture, a lot of people normally say, is it even real? Because normally a person to look a lot younger, not just look a lot younger, but physically change, right? If you look at the figure, from 2005 to 2010, it is a 5-year difference. But if you look at the picture, Joe Chang definitely looked almost 10 years younger compared to 2005. It's as if this picture was taken in 1995. So in total, I would say Joe Chang would have would reverse age in terms of how he looked, with a total of 15 to almost 20 years. And this is the time wherein Brian Johnson is not even out. Biohacking was not even popular, and we're already doing it, right? So how did we come out with such phenomenal result, right? We actually look at the aging process. Pharmanex, together with LifeGen, identified that whatever we see, with the wrinkles, the pigmentation, the white hair, these are basically just symptoms of aging. And they actually think about possible root causes, that if you could address the root cause of aging, you might be able to eliminate discoloration. You might be able to reverse, the pigmentation, loss of pigmentation in the hair. And that's what ageLOC is all about, right? So to start off, there's a study they did on twins, right? And this is a very interesting study, because if you look at identical twins, they basically came from the same egg cell and the same sperm cell. So, the process of conception basically means that identical twins came from the same egg cell and they basically just split into two embryos, right? So they have the same genetic makeup. And these two subjects, as they were under the study, they actually realized that as people get older, one could actually look a lot older than her sibling. And it's simply due to the process of not just genetics, but what happened to the genes themselves. So this is a very interesting, research that they did, that two identical siblings could actually look very different, okay, from the time they were born up to the time they grow old. And what they realize with that is that they've been searching what causes these things, right? And when they research further on the genes, they actually found what you call gene switches. Now, um, within that genes itself, they actually saw a lot of small switches. They call it switches, no? And initially, they thought that the switches are not that important. Initially, the scientists researching genes, they were looking at the genes themselves. And they realized one thing. The genes themselves doesn't really change as much when we get older. What they do notice is that the switches are the ones in particular that affects how we age. So when they actually look at the switches, they realize that, hey, these switches are actually influenced by our daily activity, by environmental factors, right? So how the switches would look like is like, in a very simple way to explain it, it's kind of like if you have a room and you have lights in the room, right? So you could turn on and turn off the switches, right? It doesn't mean that the light is not existent anymore. The light bulb is still in the room. It's just that whether the light is turned on or the light is turned off. So the same thing happened to our genes, no? Wherein when you actually got some of the switches turned on, some activities that might help people look younger gets activated. And some of these genes, when they get turned off, activities that encourage aging suddenly accelerates. So it's a very interesting research that LifeGen discovered during this process, right? And what basically turns off and turns on these particular switches are factors that some of them we can control and some of them we cannot control, right? So let me start off the things that we cannot really control much, right? So first one is genetics. So some people are more predisposed to developing certain diseases than others. And this is something that I think, science has still yet to find ways how to improve, right? But some of the internal factors could be also stress motivated, which means that the amount of pressure that the person would have on a daily basis, right? So if let's say you are rushing a lot of deadlines, right? So it increases a lot of stress in the body. Or if you're somebody who handling a lot of children. I mean, I love children, but sometimes, especially when they're very young, they really, really need our attention. So sometimes the stress level of juggling multiple children together with work, together with some responsibilities, right, could also elevate stress levels. Um, so some of them also come from the toxins. By the way, the stress are not just physical stress. It could also mean mental stress, right? And sometimes could also be emotional stress, right? And emotional stress would fall under anxiety, right? I mean, a lot of people nowadays, because of what's happening globally, is actually very anxious about, what the future will be like, right? So those things also come into play. Now, toxins, not just from the environment, but a lot of them really come from the food that we eat, right? I always, let my friends know that the vegetables we eat today is very different from the vegetables that were grown 30, 40 years ago, right? The soil quality, the amount of fertilizers, and the amount of pesticides being used are very, very high today than it was before, right? If you're into farming, you realize that normally in a year, the soil has to be given enough time to rest, okay, it means that maybe 2 times in a year, there should be no planting that's happening, and you just allow the soil to replenish its nutrients. But because of commercial demands nowadays, the soil does not even have time to rest. So what companies do is they actually introduce certain chemical nutrients to replenish minerals in the soil. But the thing is that these are actually all chemical induced already, right? So cellular metabolism basically means our body's ability to convert nutrients into energy, right? And all of these things do affect the aging process. Now, external factors would be the amount of exposures you have under the sun. If you're somebody who is around people who smoke, or basically you also smoke yourself. So those things are things we can control. But unfortunately, for some people, these are already habits. And we always say that habits sometimes are very hard to break, right? So we always say that, you start people young with the right habits so they don't develop wrong habits as they get older, right? So with ageLOC, what they actually discovered is that we were able to improve, okay, the switches within the genes, okay, being affected by these factors through what you call caloric restrictions, which means that LifeGen have identified that through caloric deficit, the body could eventually repair and heal itself. Okay, so in short, if a person would basically eat too much food, okay, or too much intake that we really need, it basically is going to harm the body more than help, right? So in short, too much too much food intake, right, will actually make the whole process of aging and the whole process of disease formation a lot faster. Coincidentally, if you really look at it, I could probably say that maybe 85-90% of chronic diseases starts from the mouth, right? It's basically start from the food that we eat, what type of food, the amount of food, right? And that's where a lot of the diabetes would come from, heart disease, even fatty liver, right? So the story of epigenetics, this is actually what LifeGen have called the switches, no? The science of epigenetics. Early on, I think was actually during 2010, 2012, was heavily featured in the media, right? Time Magazine talks about eventually being able to control our DNA, right? And what simply means is that we are no longer victims of genetics from our parents. If let's say we have poor genetics, we could simply influence them to get better, right? To the point that even the Discovery has featured one entire what you call this, like a documentary to talk about this science, right? So if some of you guys haven't seen this video, I actually got a very short clip, and you could check this out right now.
Scientists are using DNA to map out a new genetic world. In this scientific field of dreams, Dr. Cynthia Kenyon is attempting to bring what once was science fiction into reality. The fountain of youth.
Different species age at really different rates, and different species are different because they have different genes. So there's something in the genes that can affect the rate of aging, and what is it?
In her labs at the University of California, she's using genetic technology to change the very course of human evolution.
So it seemed to me that it was possible that there was something in us, like a little dial. You turn it up and you age fast, turn it down and you age more slowly, maybe even further down you age like a turtle, which is very, very slowly.
This revolution is not just limited to a secret group of elite academics. Now it's happening in the world of private enterprise. propelling this technology directly onto the mass market for everyone to access. Every health issue we're destined to encounter can be detected and cured.
What we really want to do is make sequencing affordable and commonplace so that we can use this to inform and extend everybody's life.
Scientists in the private sector are now using this new era of genetic wisdom to better understand our DNA.
Your predisposition to certain diseases are determined by your DNA. Doesn't necessarily mean fate, but it can set the boundaries of what your potential is.
Riding on the wave of a scientific revolution, both the academic world and commercial labs agree on one critical point. We are now masters of our own genetic destiny.
Okay. So that discovery feature, they didn't mention Pharmanex because I don't think they're allowed to come to mention company name. But obviously from the video, on the last part, you probably see Joe Chang, right? So they were talking about research done by LifeGen and Pharmanex, right? So ageLOC was basically a product with a very long history of research. So it's not something that discovered within 6 months and 1 year, and the company just make a product out of it and sell it in the market. So this has been a research that has more than 20-year time frame, right? So it's a combination, I would say, of these 3 companies. Obviously, LifeGen, if you have not heard of LifeGen, they're one of the pioneers who started the whole Human Genome Project. And they actually, most of the papers right now, if you want to do genetic research, a lot of the papers would actually need to start from the papers produced by LifeGen. No? So the very important part is that LifeGen is not just a partner of New Skin, but basically LifeGen was bought by New Skin. And the reason why we end up buying LifeGen, so that all the database that LifeGen has cannot be sold to different companies anymore. And this is very important, especially if you talk about going into artificial intelligence, because technology, or what you call AI, is not going to be effective if the data are not maximized. Wherein if you have very limited data, the way how AI would analyze it is actually very, very superficial. It's not going to be efficient and accurate, right? So the more data that you feed to the AI, the more accurate the result normally gets. And because of this limited, or what we call, because of this acquisition of New Skin to LifeGen, we are by far the only company in the world that has all the records, that owns the record that LifeGen has been doing for the past 20 years. In short, for other companies to create a product, the same product that we have in ageLOC, it would need them to do another 20 years of research just to get the records and the database that LifeGen has. So if other companies say that they also have the genetic product, I always ask them to show me the proof, because there is really no way for them to actually do that unless they have the records, right? The database to base their claim from, right? So obviously, New Skin's role is that New Skin and Pharmanex, we have all the database that from the raw material, from the herbs, right? So we actually have the chemical records, the records from the chemical composition of the plants, right? From the tea green to the reishi to colistin, right? So LifeGen owns the database for the human genome. New Skin Pharmanex, we own the database for a lot of the raw materials used for the products. And if you don't have this raw material, even if you know where to look at, if you know the database of the human genes, but you don't have the database of the products, there's really nothing much you can do, right? It's kind of like you know the problem, but you're limited with tools that you could use to improve on the problem, right? And the reason I put Stanford here, although there's a disclaimer by Stanford, the scientists that helped conduct the research were basically before doing it in Stanford University. But I think there is a disclaimer by Stanford that they're not part of it. It's okay. But I do remember that there's one or two scientists that basically contributed, okay, from the university, right? So we cannot directly say that Stanford has done a part of the research for ageLOC, okay, but a couple of the scientists who was with Stanford during that time did actually do some of the research. So here you could see a picture of what we call the Reese monkey. So obviously the monkey that is labeled A is looking much older than the monkey that's labeled C. But these two monkeys basically are of the same age. So basically they are kind of like siblings, okay, or sisters. But one is definitely look sharper. Look at the fur. It's actually very bright compared to the label A, wherein the fur is already like very thin. It's kind of like a person that's already losing their hair, and the eyes is no longer sharp. It's kind of like the eyes of a typical old person that has some eyesight problem, like a cataract or this problem, right? So just do look at this video for this research.
For years, we've known that dieting, extreme dieting known as caloric restriction, has led to longer, healthier lives in lab animals. The proof? These very old and very fit monkeys at the University of Wisconsin.
Looking at two monkeys that are about the same age, which is 28 years old, which is about a year past the average lifespan of rhesus monkeys.
At the National Primate Research Center in Wisconsin, Professor Rick Weindruck suits up and shows us the results of nearly a career's worth of research.
We have to wait 30 to 40 years for our lifespan data to be final in the monkeys. We are getting there, and we are getting meaningful, statistically robust differences.
Colleagues call him the most patient scientist in his field. While others have proven the benefits of CR or caloric restriction in everything from yeast to worms to mice, for decades Weindruck has been studying its effects on monkeys with their longer lifespans and their similarities to humans.
The one on the left has been subjected to caloric restriction roughly for the last 20 years since the experiment began. This animal is eating 30% fewer calories than it ate prior to the start of the study.
Since it was first stumbled on in the 1930s, CR has been a foundation in aging research. Researchers say this type of calorie cutting seems to turn on a sort of genetic survival switch.
We think it's really quite clear that for the large majority of the monkeys on calorie restriction, they look younger than those on the normal diet that are the same age.
But Weindruck says its benefits are much more than just skin deep.
And we're seeing roughly a 4 times greater risk of developing age-related diseases in the animals on the normal diet as opposed to those subjected to caloric restriction.
Age-related diseases that include cancers, diabetes, the list is well known. And just this past month, Weindruck's team made another discovery. Brain scans of the CR monkeys, when compared to their well-fed counterparts, showed significantly less atrophy or cell loss along the surface of the brain, which could potentially add another age-related illness to the list, Alzheimer's disease. While the brain shrinks with normal aging, that rate is doubled in people with Alzheimer's. Weindruck says the recent findings are significant.
It's not about picking off one disease at a time. It's about quieting this whole broad threshold of problems that stem from this common process which we call aging.
All right. So that is actually LifeGen, the head researcher, and that feature from CNN was many years ago, and it basically talks about the science, a summary of the science of what ageLOC basically does, right? So products like R-Square and YouthSpan, we basically mimic caloric restriction in certain areas targeted, okay, by the products, right? So as we say that there are more than 25,000 genes within the entire body, and definitely there is no one product that could address all genes simultaneously, right? So there's no such thing. So what we do have is that we identify the genes that are responsible for what you call metabolism, right? Or what we call energy productivity, right? So, and when you look at the genes focusing there, what we can do is that we can identify certain products, certain ingredients from the herbs, right, from Pharmanex that could improve the productivity of energy level by being able to address switches from the genes responsible for the mitochondria, right? So let me start off with again with ageLOC R square. And ageLOC R square is a product that is directly going to affect the gene expression of mitochondrial health, right? So in a nutshell, mitochondria exists in all the cells we have within the body, and they call it the powerhouse, or what we call the battery of the cell. So mitochondria technically produces the energy for the cells to function. And as we get older, normally the mitochondria's energy productivity also goes down, right? Imagine you have a mobile phone, and when you bought it brand new, you actually have a 100% charge. That could probably last you more than a day, maybe like 2 days at least, right? But as the battery gets older and the phone gets used more often, sometimes a full charge would only last you one afternoon. So a lot of people would end up buying an extra battery pack simply because that's not enough energy being produced by the battery anymore. So the same thing with the human body, that our mitochondria energy production is a lot when we were young, right? So all the genes that is optimizing energy production, they're very they're very, I would say, effective in producing energy when we're young. That's why when we look at children, they could run around the entire day and don't get tired, right? And when they go to sleep, they sleep very, very well because the entire energy input output is very, very ideal still, right? But as we get older, you realize that, yeah, after you have your first morning work in the office, by the time you have your lunch, you feel very sleepy, right? And you feel a bit tired, that most people would need to get a shot of espresso, right? So if you take your coffee, you feel that you get more awake, right? But the thing is that taking coffee is not really a very good solution for you to really function properly, because coffee is what you call a stimulant. And the stimulant that if you take in more often will actually do more harm than good, right? So stimulation from time to time, every now and then, is okay. It improves your adrenaline. It increases your adrenaline. It helps you on your mental focus. But if you do it every day, you would wear out your body, right? So taking coffee on a daily basis as a way to boost energy is not really an ideal long-term solution, especially if you know people that are taking energy drinks like the Red Bull stuff, right? Or what you call the Monster drink. People that need the drink to have more energy, right? The thing is that these are all chemicals that would eventually get back to your liver and to your kidney. It could destroy them if you do it every day. And that's the reason why, you don't really want to, as much as possible, rely on those things. Now, for me, R square is the perfect solution because R square is a natural product that helps improve your mitochondrial health so that your mitochondria could improve on producing energy on its own. So you don't rely on a stimulant to produce energy. What you're doing is you're helping your own body, in this case, the mitochondria, right, to function better so that your energy output would actually increase by itself or increase naturally, right? So it focuses especially on the three areas of our body: your brain, your heart, your muscle, because these three areas of our body contains the highest level of mitochondrial productivity. Like, if you realize that as a person gets older, the first thing that you would notice that gets affected would be memory, right? You tend to forget things that happened recently, right? So those are actually signs that your brain function is also going down in a way, right? Second is your heart, simply because if you notice, most people, once they hit the age of 40, 45, a very common problem they have would have been heart disease, right? They would have some form of cholesterol, or they would actually have some form of high blood pressure, right? And third is within the muscle. And we could notice this, that if you're going up on stairs, right? If you go from the ground floor to the second floor to the third floor, what used to be very easy to just jump on the stairs and go up, you now feel very tired or very strenuous in your, especially in the leg muscle, right? So on top of most people not doing a lot of leg exercises, the ability to produce energy within the muscles also go down as we age, right? So these are the three areas that it's very visible, but there's a lot of benefit that R square has. These are the three major points, right? Now, I would like to focus on the gene chart you see below. This is actually called the gene chip. The gene chip is a technology developed by LifeGen, so it is exclusively under LifeGen, and no other company in the world have basically access to this, right? So it's kind of like the prism. So for me, this is probably where the idea, okay, of prism would come from, wherein you're basically analyzing data using a technology, and you don't just analyze one unit of data, but you analyze one set of data, right? So what you can see on the first chart is the gene expression of what a young person is. So most of the greens are on the upper part and the red is on the lower part, right? So this study, when they did it back then, they show it to scientists, and the researchers could identify that the genetics, the source of these genes was basically sourced from a young individual. When you look at the middle part, wherein the red is on the upper and the green is on the lower, this is basically the gene that is sourced from an older person. So it's very, very obvious that the green turned red and the red turned green, right? So this is what you call the switches got activated in a certain way. And the last part almost mimic the gene color of the first part, wherein the green is on the upper part and the red is on the lower part. So when they were researching and they actually showed this particular set of gene, most people would identify that this is the gene of a younger person because it is almost 92% similar to the first chart. And when they revealed the research, they actually revealed that this last chart was coming from an older person, but was on an ageLOC product, okay, for successive months, around probably 6 months to a year. So from this data alone, you can realize that the product definitely works from the fact that from the study itself, that most people would presume from the data set alone that this last gene chart is from a young person, right? So it's very exciting. Now, these are some of the anecdotal benefits that we have from ageLOC. For some people, it could be seen that they would look a lot younger. So the first person, I believe, was from China. He's, I think, the president, if I remember correctly, president of Nokia from China back then when Nokia was still alive, right? And if you look at his picture in 43 and you look at his how he looked in 50, he looked a lot younger. His kid already grew up, right? This is a 7-year difference, right? For some people, they could notice that their hair would actually turn black again. Now, I'm not saying that this is a product that would make white hair go back to black, right? So the thing with ageLOC is that some of the benefits would be very different to different people. So as your body regains mitochondrial and energy productivity, sometimes the body would react in a certain way positively, different ways for different people. For some people, they start growing back their hair, especially for younger people who lost their hair early on due to stress and due to probably lack of sleep, right? So it could help in this area. So again, I'm not saying that these are going to help people grow hair. It's just that for some people, this is the benefit that they saw, right? So based on the clinical study, the only thing that we could claim is that we could claim that for R square, it improves the energy productivity from the mitochondria, and that is the one that's being proven. Now, if you see this on the right, this is Byo Hyun Lee. He's actually a Korean actor, and he played the White Ninja in G.I. Joe. I don't know if some of you guys have watched that movie, and he's already a bit older. When he was taking this interview on how his lifestyle was, accidentally they actually saw the picture of Life Pack and of Galvanic Spa and R Square. Now, he is not a spokesperson for New Skin. He's also not an advertiser for our product. He was simply interviewed and accidentally caught, okay, some of the product he's been using at home. And he's already, during this time, I would believe close to 60 years old. And for somebody close to 60, it looks this good. I think, whatever he's taking, I'm gonna, buy a lot of it, right? So R square has two formulation, the morning formulation, the evening formulation. The morning formula, again, is for energy productivity, and the evening formula is for detox. And for your energy productivity to be efficient, you have to have detox, right? And this is something very important also if you are somebody that have a high liver toxicity, or if you have a bit of fatty liver. This is something that is very important, the evening formula. I think in the US, they sell R square as Vitality, and they sell the night formula separately. But in the Philippines, it's actually taken as a combination. They sell it in one set. Now, we talk about YouthSpan, and YouthSpan is actually one of the product that I would say the most innovative research that ever came out from New Skin and Pharmanex, simply because this one can address multi-organ or multi-body system benefit, right? So this is what Dr. Weinberg talked about in the CNN interview, wherein you could address multiple issues within the body by a particular improvement, or one particular product that could have multiple benefits, right? From your skeletal system, which means for ladies who are osteoporotic, people who are osteoporotic or producing or very not very dense bone health, right? From the respiratory system to the muscular system, circulatory, digestive, and even the nervous system. This study was actually a study they did on the mice, and for typical mice, the time frame is shorter compared to the monkeys, because monkeys, they live a longer life, right? So the mice they did was a study wherein the one on the right was on an ageLOC diet, wherein caloric restriction, okay, and on the right side is a typical diet that they give to on the left side is the typical diet they give to the rats, right? So obviously, the one on the left side died earlier, while on the right side, it actually lived a bit longer, right? So on human years, both of them, when they were still alive, they were around 97-year-old typical compared to human years. But the one on the right was able to live over 117, 118, right? Which means that the one on the right have an extended lifespan of more than maybe 10 to 20% more, or 10 to 20 years more. Now, it's not just the years that is important, right? Because people could live long. But I think the main question is that, do people have a higher quality of life during those extended years? Because you don't want to actually have a life wherein maybe 20-30% of the last few years, you're basically lying in the bed, bedridden, or having somebody to take care of you 24/7. That's not, I think, what people idea of long life is, right? Our idea of a good long life is basically being active, being able to enjoy enjoy some physical activity, going out. And this study they showed was during the last few years of the rat on the right side, the rat was still very actively, very mobile. He's still is still moving around, right? So I think this is the lifestyle that everybody would like to have as we reach our ripe old age of 80, 90, and maybe for some of us over 100, right? And this is where YouthSpan will come in, because YouthSpan, okay, is basically coming from the name YouthSpan came from the concept wherein how much years of your life that you are going to be youthful. For some people, it might be 40, 50 years, right? By the time they're 50, 60, they have a hard time walking around. So the idea is that we like to extend the youthfulness as long as possible. Maybe we could extend it to maybe in our late 60s into our 70s, right? And hopefully by the time we are 80s, we still move like a 60-year-old in our 80s, right? So that's what we want to happen. So one of the studies they did on YouthSpan is they did a study on neuroscience, right? They look at the brain nerves, connectivity of the brain, and they noticed that as we get older, these dendrites, or what you call the nerve connection, okay, also diminishes as we get older. So it's very normal that our reflexes also become slower. Our memory is also become poorer because, number one, the brain also shrinks with aging, but at the same time, the dendrites also, the connectivity of our dendrites of the nerves also becomes poorer. So Weisspan have shown, okay, through data that taking Weisspan for a consecutive number of months, I would say at least 6 months to a year, you could improve, okay, the new growths of dendrites. So these are new growths wherein you're stimulating new connections so that we could actually remember a lot more than we would, okay? Or we would also be able to process information a lot faster, right? So I'm not saying that we could think like a 20-year-old, but if we could improve 10, 15 to 20% of our brain function, I would take it, right? I mean, if you have been somebody that's already, if you live with somebody that's already in their 70s or 80s, right? You would understand that sometimes, it's not easy to take care of people, especially if they start losing their memory, right? So this is something very, very important, I would say, for everybody as we reach our senior years. So again, they look at the MRI scan of people on ageLOC youth and people that are on regular or or is not on ageLOC, and they noticed that there are a lot of parts of the brain that is lighting up, wherein the brain is once you stimulate it, the brain would actually react to the stimulants, okay, to the stimulation a lot more compared to the brain that is not on Weisspan. Okay, so this is very interesting because this is real life MRI study done for 6 weeks. Now, I think one of the more important part is also the YouthSpan's ability to elongate telomeres, right? So telomeres are basically the cap, okay, within our chromosome. So, and we understand that when cells they split, right, the telomeres would get shorter, and the length of the telomeres will determine the longevity of the cell life, right? So the longer the telomeres, the longer the life of that cell. And the longer the life of the cell typically means that we actually have a longer life, right? So just watch this video.
You know why some people age faster than others within the same age group? The reason is that real age is not determined by the date of birth. It is determined by the length of telomeres. Nobel Prize laureate Professor Blackburn studied telomeres and discovered that the cells of our body are constantly replaced by new ones. But the problem is that the number of cell divisions is limited, and the number of these divisions is determined by the length of telomeres. With each cell division, telomeres are damaged, and their length decreases. When they can no longer shorten, the cell cannot divide, and you start to get gray hair, wrinkles, and a weakened immune system. Professor Blackburn studied a group of mothers who had to take care of their children for a long time, over 4 years, and found that the longer and more intense the stress period, the shorter the telomeres, and the faster the aging process. The main factor influencing the length of telomeres is the emotions caused by stress. If the emotion is negative, it directly affects their length. A positive attitude towards problems preserves your youth and health.
All right. So again, one more reason why it's important to take YouthSpan. And by the way, YouthSpan under ageLOC is the only product that I know of that have the evidence and the clinical study shown to elongate telomeres. Right. So of course, we cannot claim that we could actually make people live longer. But, based on the science, right, if telomeres gets longer, the lifespan also gets longer by default, right? So this is what the research is pointing. So again, there's a lot of data pointing out to inflammation and, a lot of these things. And inflammation is also directly connected to our immune system. So, if you probably heard of autoimmune disease, technically what it means is that the body has chronic inflammation for a very long time, that the body is attacking itself already, right? So again, YouthSpan is one of those products that for me, taken together with omega-3, Optimo Omega or Marine Omega, it's very, very important to address the inflammatory aspect, okay, of our body. Now, the thing with inflammation is actually there's a book written about it. It's called The Silent Disease. Because inflammation, you don't really feel it until it's too late, right? Or until it becomes a problem. So chronic inflammation means that from the time you wake up, okay, up to the time you fall asleep, the body is actually undergoing inflammatory reaction. It's just that your body has the ability to manage it. But when you come to a point wherein it becomes too bad, you will start feeling it in your fingers. You will notice that the fingers might feel a bit tight. Then your arthritis would hurt, or sometimes you would feel very tired easily. Those are normally signs, symptoms from high level of inflammation. So by addressing and lowering down inflammation, you could definitely see a very big improvement on your overall daily activity, right? So again, why I said why ageLOC Wispan is one of the most important product produced by New Skin, because it addresses multiple areas that are critical, right? It also, by the way, improves what you call the ADMs, or aging defense mechanism. I always say to my friends that when we were born, our body refuses to age, right? If you remember when you were young and you had an accident, and you got cut in your skin, and you're having some bleeding, you realize that if you take care of it, maybe within a week, right, or maybe within a few days, the blood would have dried up and would just become a scald, and you just remove it after a week. Nowadays, if you're somebody who's probably above 50 or have elevated blood sugar, if you actually got wounded, it takes a long time for the wound to heal, right? So your body's ability to regenerate also gets affected because the genes responsible for the repair and recovery got turned off as we get older. Another thing is that if you remember, people that break a bone when they're young and go see a doctor, they normally would have it casket, okay, put a cast on it, and maybe 6 months later, when you remove it, the bones are back together again. It's connected. Now, when you're above maybe around 40, 50, or especially when you're 60, the last thing you want to do is basically fall down, because, falling down, that could cause breakage of the bone. There's really no way to recover from it except if you have a doctor to do a surgery and to put metal plates on it, which means that the body's ability to recover and regenerate broken bones is almost entirely turned off as we get older. So something that we used to have when we're young, it's no longer available when we're old. So that is a perfect way for me when I explain how YouthSpan works within the body. It improves on the body's function to repair and recover, or what you call it prevents the body, it improves the body's aging defense mechanisms, right? So these are all the ingredients. I won't go into one into one, but one of the most important thing to understand is that the ingredients of YSpan, it's not the typical ingredient you get from a diet. So, LifePack, for me, it's a very important product. But LifePack, if you are going to look at ingredients, you could actually source some of them through some of the food that you eat every day, right? But for YSpan, it's not easy to do that, especially if you're talking about getting your anthocyanin, what you call this, peppercorn extract, right? Or your orange oil, right? So those are actually not easy to get or not easily supplied by your daily diet. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you need to have it on the right dosage, because if you're taking all the ingredients below the right dosage, you're not going to get the benefit that is written, that is being forwarded through the clinical study. So the clinical study, the main basis is that it has a minimum required amount of ingredients formulated together that is going to produce that effectivity for the human body. Anything that is not accurately formulated, okay, whether you put in too much or too little, would have definitely a different result in itself. So I won't go into this, explain again. This is the gene chip I'm talking about a while ago, right? Exclusively patented from LifeGen. So again, it's using light to identify genes activity performance. So this is, we all know Miss Monica Lam, our good friend from Malaysia. And when we took her picture, this time was, I think what YouthSpan was still very new and it came out in the market. And definitely you could see the difference in terms of how she moves, no? If you know Monica loves to dance and she's very active. The last time I saw her was in Korea together in our trip, right? Wonderful person. And again, this is Joe Chang. And moving forward in his 2005 picture that you saw earlier on. And this is probably the latest picture that I have of him in 2015. But if you see him in person in the US, you would notice that he still looks great, still as youthful as possible, right? And this is what ageLOC is really all about. It's actually trying to biohack our way without having to go through all the process. If you have been following Brian Johnson, he has a documentary called Don't Die, and he does a lot of things to his body. He spends over $2 million a year, okay, in research to actually showcase the audience on what he's doing to make him look young. So number one is that not everybody could spend $2 million, okay? But again, not also everyone have the time, have the attention, and probably have the effort to go through what he's going through. So what I'm saying is that, again, he's doing a great job to help people, show people what products work and what products don't work for biohacking. But for me, if you can get the result by taking on what to call a pill or making it accessible to everybody by just taking it as a food supplement, that is something that 99.9% of people in the world would prefer, right?
This publication has been trusted for years by medical professionals worldwide. Physician's Desk Reference is an authoritative source about prescription drugs to help improve health. Pharmanex is honored to be featured in the Physician's Desk Reference. There are 7 Pharmanex products listed here, including the entire ageLOC TR90 weight management system.
PDR is a global, well-recognized publication referenced by many professionals in the medical field. It is an honor and a privilege for Pharmanex to be one of the nutritional supplement companies to have its products listed here, especially the ageLOC family of anti-aging products.
Pharmanex continues to innovate and develop nutritional supplements based on the 6S quality assurance process, helping you live younger, longer, and healthier lives. Get ready to discover your best self.
All right. So having listed in the PDR definitely is already way above other brands already, because PDR have a very strict requirement, okay, to allow you to actually be featured and listed there. All right. So in the end, I always tell my friend, you know what? If you're talking about investment, one of the most important investment we do really is investing in our well-being, in our health, and in our youth, no? So in the Philippines, we actually have a bundle wherein you could get R Square and YouthSpan together, and the company provides you a certain discounted price already. Now, in the US, I do think that they also have bundle discount. And for me, it's one of the best ways for people to get the best product with the best price is you just get it as a bundle, consume it for a year, compared to just getting it for a monthly basis, right? So getting a monthly basis, you get it at the regular wholesale. But if you get it for a year, or in this case, 6 months, you basically get the maximum discount that the company is providing. All right. So with that, again, I thank everyone for joining this call. I'll probably go back to Marguerite. Marguerite?
Wow, this is an amazing talk. This is so good, so good. Very easily understood. And anybody has any questions for Dennis? Okay, somebody thanking you
I
already.
have one question. Dennis,
Yeah.
have you made some experience with the score on Prism.io, taking Air Square and use
Oh, okay.
only?
Normally, yeah, for the youth span has the ability to increase Prism score because it
Mhm.
contains certain carotenoids and antioxidant. But for the R square is not a product that increases carotenoids and antioxidants. So I think the youth span definitely will, taken together with G3 and Life Pack. For me, it's a very powerful combination for increasing Prism score.
Thanks for explaining me.
Yeah, that's very good. I think the YouthSpan, the ageLOC Youth, is one of the product that will guarantee for your Prism score to go up. Okay. Anyone, any more questions? Let's see. Everyone. Everybody's thanking you, Dennis. It was so good. Comprehensive, like they said. Ooh. Okay. So I know today it took you a long time to tell the whole hour. It was amazing talk. So this is recorded.
Yeah.
This is recorded and we will put it on YouTube in a few days.
Yeah. Can I just add, somebody was asking for the slides. Actually, with the slides, yeah, you could check out YouTube. It's better that when the video comes out, I think it's better if you could come out with your own slide because you'll be able to explain it better. But for the videos, a lot of them are actually available on YouTube. You just have to search it and edit it according to your need. Yeah. The
Agreed.
videos are basically just from YouTube.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dennis. Okay, today was amazing day, and tomorrow we'll have Helen Nags, the Vice President of PharmaNext, talk about Mind 360s. And so we shall see you in about 24 hours. Same time, same place. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
you,
Goodbye.
everyone. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Dennis. I'm agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.